Here's what you should have if you've completed the first 3 steps in the directions and completed the first 3 pieces of your stocking kit. You can see the scattered green sequins around and the red stripe and the name at the cuff. Now I'll let you see the back just so you can kind of know where we're coming from. We whip stitched around the 3 sides to put this white piece on, and then just stitched it down at the bottom, the regular applique stitch, as well as all the sequins. So now we are ready to start with piece number 4. Number 4 says embroider and sequin hot pad number 4. And so the piece number 4 is on your yellow, is a piece that's in the yellow. And remember, the directions that I have for this are never saying to cut out the piece, but that's always the first step you need to do. So we're going to cut out the piece. And the first step always is to cut it away from the other pieces, just roughly. And always take that number with you. And now if I put my glasses on, I can see better to do the cutting. And I always just come at it from somewhere that seems logical to me. And again, we're going to cut just inside of this black line on this piece. And just remember, take your time. There's no rush. Go slowly. You'll have a better result. You can kind of see that I try to keep taut what I am cutting away. I've always found that cutting is easier when the material that you're cutting is somewhat tensioned. It just seems to help the cutting, for me anyway, to go a little smoother. Did you see a little black spot right there? I'm going to turn away. And there. Okay. And there's our piece cut out. And I had to do kind of a double check here. It says, so when I look over here, you're going to flip over and look at your pot holder right here. And this around the edge seems to indicate these circles with some lines in them. So when I go to the key that I have for what stitch that is, circles with lines in them, looks like this running stitch with two red. Okay, now you can see that the piece is cut out and that it indicates these circles here, and they seem to have some little lines in them. So when I go to this guide sheet, the thing that looks closest to me is this running stitch with red, and it's 2 strands. However, I go over here and it looks to me like those are not red, but that's okay. It says red, we're going to go with red. I don't see anything else it could be except possibly this straight stitch right here with 2 strands of green. That may have been how the person who did the one in the photograph interpreted that. Trying to see if I can see any others. on here. So I think I'm gonna make that judgment call, and we're gonna do red. And so let's get, I've got a needle threaded here with some red. I've got a single strand threaded here, and it says 2 strands to do this straight stitch. So I'm just simply going to bring the ends together so that it's doubled, and then make my knot. I don't like long tails, so I'll trim off that end. And now it's set a straight stitch, so I'm going to start up here. Or a running stitch, I think. So I'm going to go down at the end and up at the next line. And down at the end and up in the next one. And just keep going like that all the way around. Now, if I had been smart, I would have started here and gone around. But these lines right here indicate that another piece is going to be put on top of it. So they are not lines to stitch. So now we need to go. It's too far, I think. So I'm going to go ahead and knot off. So, and then pick up there on the other side. So back to the instructions, and it says embroider, which we did, and sequin the hot pad 4. I don't see any sequin except the one that appears to fasten it up at the top right here. And I think I'm going to wait and put that one on with when I fasten it to the stocking. So we've embroidered it. Embroider, sequin, and applique the patch, which is number 5. And number 5 is this patch right here in blue. So again, we're going to cut it away. Be careful not to cut into any pieces that you'll be using later. Oh, he just loves to lay on my papers and things. If I saw a little bit of black right there, And let's see, it's going to go right on top of there like that, but it says that we are going to use this dark dashed line and a square with a dot in it for the sequence. So the dark dashed line looks like is white, and when I look at the picture it looks like it's white, so that matches. And we are going to use 3 strands and do an outline stitch. And I will tell you, always do your embroidery before you do the sequins because the sequins will catch in the embroidery and really just be frustrating and stuff. So so always do as much sewing as you can before you get to the sequins. Now this says 3 strands, and let's see, what do I have here? I actually think I have 3 strands right here. Yep, 1, 2, 3. I'll just use that. Put this back over here, and I'll thread up another embroidery needle with all 3 strands. I see that in the picture it looks like I'll be doing this for some of the other things, hot pads, things that are hanging. So I will likely use this 3 strands again. Otherwise, sometimes I just decide not to do 3, just to do 2. But this is going to be the outline stitch because that's what it said. Double checking. Yes, the outline stitch. All right. I may have to eject my assistant here from being so much in the way. All right. Let me go through the outline stitch. When it goes edge to edge, it can be a real challenge to do, and to try to get it not to pull through your felt. So I'm going to come in to the felt on the line at about 1/4 of an inch away from the edge. And now I'm going to go all the way around and come up about halfway between the original thread and the edge. So I'm going to come up right about halfway, right about there. And I'm going to let this floss go all the way around. Now you can't pull it too tight or else it will pull. But there you've got your stitch all the way on the edge. And now I can continue to do a regular outline stitch where you just make a small stitch. Oops. This always feels like I'm going backwards because my needle is pointing the opposite direction of where I'm trying to take my line. Shh. And keep going all the way across with your small stitches. I always pull my thread down below. And now for my last stitch, I'm going to do again, let it go all the way around. Like that. And then I'm going to go back down in just on the other side of that floss. And that helps to tack it right in place. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other lines, and then I'll be back, and then we'll put the sequins on. Okay, so there's the hot pad finished, and now we need to place it on the stocking where it says number 4. And so we are going to place it right there. And when we do that, it's a good idea to match up these lines that it is giving us that are going to indicate, in this particular instance, it's Santa's beard. So you always want to look and make sure that wherever you're placing your piece, that those lines match up. So I'm going to put a couple of pins in to hold it into place. And then what we want to do is we're going to thread up a yellow thread, which I don't have any threaded, onto an embroidery needle, because we're going to be appliquing it on, and going all the way around. And what I like to do with the pieces that they tell me I'm going to stuff is I will sew about 3/4 of the way around, and then I will take my little piece of stuffing and stick it in and get it organized the way I like it, filling up the space the way it should, and then I can finish stitching it down. So again, conditioning this thread. Now I have a friend who makes these too. She makes them only for family. And she never sews with this embroidery floss. She always just sews with sewing thread. So if you have sewing thread around, or you find that you're really struggling with the embroidery floss, you can save the floss for just the embroidery if you choose, and use sewing thread for the other things like applique and the bead, sequin and bead work. So on this piece, I think I'm going to sew around here like this and stop right here and leave this open for the stuffing. So that's my plan, so you can get into my head with me. That's scary. You know what? I'm going to go that way because I like to sew that direction. So I'm actually going to leave this space open. This yellow felt is very, very thin. So I need to make sure that I take enough of a bite into it that it's not going to just pull right through. Normally I would try to take a little bit smaller stitch into the felt. I'm actually going almost all the way to the red embroidery lines. Not quite, but close. See how the sequins catch? That's why you certainly want to do as much sewing as you can before you apply those sequins. Although you just get used to the fact that you're going to stop for a minute and you're going to get it off of there. And keep on going. So the more bits you get on the stocking, the more that happens, the more often that's going to happen. And now I can't forget to come back and put that sequin on that dot right there. I don't remember what color it's supposed to be, but I'll look it up. Pins are also like to catch your thread. So I like to take out a pin as soon as I'm finished. It's done its job holding down where I'm sewing, just to get them out of the way. Which this one is almost finished doing its job. And you can see this white line here. The piece has shifted out just a bit, so I'm gonna reshift it because I want it to cover all those indicator lines. But if should you get finished with a piece and all of a sudden you see, oh, that didn't cover that line, what you can do is take the edge of your scissors or the edge of a needle and you just scrape the top of the felt very lightly, and you just scrape off the paint, which is really what that is it's just paint, and it's just on the top. So you can fix that pretty easily. Sometimes when I'm finished with a stocking, I notice something that I didn't cover or that I don't like how it covered, and I do go back and give it a little scrape. Okay, I have gone 3/4 of the way around, and so I don't know if you've heard me say it before, but when you stuff a stocking, I just keep this little bag of stuffing in my box. You stuff it very little, and see, here's the stuffing I pulled out, and that honestly is probably a little too much. I'm going to pull a little off. So I have a piece that's about like this, and I like to tuck the kind of all the little hairs in and then just tuck it inside. And you can work it a bit and flatten it out if you need to. But I do try to make sure that I've got all the little hairs inside. Now in this case, I can just hold it down and stitch it. But if you need to, don't be afraid to put a pin in and make sure that it stays put while you finish stitching. I have been guilty of stuffing too much on a stocking, and then they get really puffy and they get pulled a little bit out of shape. But you almost can't understuff. If you put any stuffing in there at all, it's going to make an impression. It's going to make an impact. So you can see how that's just a little bit puffy there. And that's really all you want, is just a little bit of three-dimensionality. By the time you have gotten all the pieces on this stocking and you've stuffed all of them that are supposed to be stuffed, you will have quite a bit of three-dimensionalness to the stocking. So you really can't understuff, but you can definitely overstuff, and then you can really make yourself some real challenges with trying to fit the rest of your pieces on if you drastically overstuff. So let's go back to our directions here. We embroidered, we sequined the hot pad, embroider, sequin, and applique the patch to the hot pad, stuff and applique the completed hot pad to the stocking. So I can check that off, but I do have to put that extra sequin up at the top. What did it say? It should be a triangle. So what color is a triangle sequin? It is black. Okay, so I need to put one black sequin up at the top where they're going to anchor it, and I don't have any black threaded up, so I will need to thread a bead needle with black here. A single strand, and because this is a bead needle, I am going to use the needle threader again. And for the sequins, I'm knotting both ends together so that I'm working with a doubled piece of floss. Okay, and since we are going to be using black, I have a little container of black beads. I only need one right now. Oh, it's hard to get just one. And I think here are my black sequins. So we are going to come up from the back of the stocking, right through the center of that dot, as close as you can come. Again, get one sequin, make sure it's curved the right way, pull through, get one bead, go back down through, pull it tight. There we go. Gonna come to the back side right there and give it a knot, since this is the only one I'm doing right now. Oh dear. Okay. And that finishes number 4 and 5. Let's see what's next. Now, embroider, stuff, and applique the whisk, number 6, to the stocking. Embroider, stuff, and applique the whisk to the stocking. Okay, so the whisk is number 6, so that's this. And then it has a 7 that's going to attach to it. So I like to see what color it is. It's gray. So we're going to find it in our patch of gray pieces. Number 6. And again, it doesn't instruct you to cut it out, but you do. So embroider, stuff, and applique the whisk to the stocking. Sequin and applique the whisk handle. So we're going to do them separately. We're not going to attach them to one another until they're on the stocking. Okay, and it shows the black dashed line for the whisk, and the black dashed line is the 3 strands of white floss doing the outline stitch. So we will do that. And here is my needle threaded with the 3 strands of white. And when I'm doing curved lines for the outline stitch, I like to work in the direction like it was a smile, not like it was a frown. So like it's a smile, and that allows me to hold my thread below And now when I get close to the edge, because this is another one of those pieces that has the line right up to the edge, so I'm in my last stitch, I'm going to come up from the back right where I ended that stitch before, and so it goes all the way around the felt. I want to get it right where I want it, and then I'm going to stitch my needle down right next to that, right next to where that stitch was, and hold it right there, and that works. So I'm going to knot this off and complete the rest of these stitches on this whisk, and then we'll be right back. You can see that the embroidery is finished on the whisk, and it is pinned and lined up in place where it should be on the stocking. Now it's time to get a piece of thread that's going to match the whisk, the gray color. I didn't feel that there was a true gray, although this taupe color was, I felt, the closest. So I am going to thread up an embroidery needle with one strand of the taupe color in an embroidery needle, and use that to applique stitch halfway around this piece. That will leave the other half open so that I can do the stuffing once I've gone halfway around. Now that I've stitched halfway around, it's time to add the stuffing. And a good rule of thumb for me is to pull out and wad up a little ball of about half as much stuffing as I think I need, because that's probably going to be plenty. So, and once you get that little tiny bit of stuffing kind of all situated down inside there, and you try to get all the hairs tucked in, then it's time to stitch up the rest of the piece, so the rest of this whisk. And again, this is another small piece. Really, I don't need to pin it down too much. I can just hold it with my thumb and continue stitching. Yep. Not that I put up, but not that you communicate to me. He always communicates to you too. All right, the next part is simply to cut out this handle, number 7. And it is just a straight cutout. There isn't really anything exceptional to it. It goes right here on the top of the whisk, I have a pin and I'm just going to pin it down, and it is not stuffed. I see a little bit of white left on there from my cutting. I'm going to just take off. You can see I take off just the top layer. Okay, and I've got my needle threaded and ready. Not sure this will be enough thread to get all the way around, but we'll see. And I always take off that extra tail if it's very long. Just don't like to see those things on the back of my work. And we'll just simply applique this stitch. I'm having trouble. I might need 2 pins. Even though this is a small piece, the felt is a little thin, and so it wants to move around. There we go. And you can see here that once again I have lined up the white lines here in the red piece with the lines that are going to come in here. I think this is Santa's big baker's hat, but you want to get those to be as lined up as close as you can. That means that your piece is in the right orientation, and then we will just stitch this down. And again, I'll stitch all the way around it. And your applique stitches, see where my thread has, let me see if I can get a little closer here without losing too much of my focus. All right, I think that focus is better. Let's see. So when you are doing the stitch, you want to go down in straight across from where you came up in this applique stitch. And then you're going to move to the next spot on the underside, so that your stitches are pretty much as you can do straight across from one another. They're not at any kind of an angle. And you will find that in certain directions and things you have to give it a little bit of an angle, but that angle to me is what can get off. You know, if you don't make the angle exactly the same, it can look really off. So I find that straight actually looks neater and works better, I think, for me anyway. If you particularly love angles and you want to go for it, go ahead. Oh, I just unthreaded my needle. Give it a try. I have not had success with it. The only time, sorry, trying to rethread my needle. The only time you really see my stitches being angled is when I'm whip stitching all the way around, like right here. And even that I try to get straight, but it's kind of impossible to get that totally straight right there when you're going all the way around. And if you find, like I'm seeing here, that this red felt is kind of thin, you may want to take a little deeper bite into that felt than you would normally, just to make sure that your stitches don't pull through. Especially when you get there to a corner, it's really easy to pull right through the felt. Oops. Sequins and beads will continue to be an issue as we put more and more onto this stocking. And that's one thing I would suggest, is that you go through your stocking when you've got it all done and see if there are any sequins that have become loose. And that will happen occasionally. If a sequin is in an area where it gets pulled or hooked on. Where'd my needle go? Oh, goodness. There, I hear it. There it is. If there's a section that gets pulled on, I have found that sometimes when I finish a stocking, there's a handful of sequins that have become loosened, and then I'll just go over those with an additional stitch and a knot on the back, just to be sure that they're very secure when the stocking is finished. Don't worry about it. It's a simple fix, but it's well worth it, because if you start losing sequins and beads from your finished stocking, you can have a real cascade effect, especially if there aren't knots behind each one. All right, there it is. And now I believe that gets a black sequin also, just like this one, but I'm going to double check in my, let's see, in my picture here. Yes, it's the triangle, just like the triangle for the pot holder. So it is one black sequin and one black bead. So we'll get that out here. Let's see, here's my beads. Why do I not leave these things out? Well, as you might suspect, I've had opportunities to knock them over and to have them spill, and that is not pleasant. I don't recommend it. So that's why I have gotten very disciplined about putting things back where they go, because I have had so many occasions to have to pick up my spills. So let's see here. And we're going to go in and come right up as centered as possible in that dot. I'm going to pick up one sequin. Make sure it's facing cupped up. And grab my one bead and back down through. And it would be an option to do these when you get all of these up here, and to do them all at once. But although I might do that on one thread, you'd have to cut and stop to come over here. I don't know that I would go that far, or even that far. So I might as well just do them one at a time if I'm going to knot them on the back. And it allows me to check off the box that I fully completed this particular step. If there's a step that I can't fully complete, and there are sometimes where I choose to do something in a different order than they recommend, and it's just simply because I've learned that works better for me, then instead of checking that box off, I circle it. And that allows me to know, hey, I need to come back to this box because there's something in there that I haven't finished. And that keeps me from skipping something that I might end up finding at the end, and then it's difficult to do. So you can see as these pieces begin really layering on top of one another, it can be difficult to get to certain pieces that you need to if you see a mistake. So, all right. That is Embroider Stuff and Applique the Whisk 6, Sequin and Applique the Whisk handle 7 to the stocking. So that one is done.